Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Michael Wilson. I'm the webinar producer for KardasLarson. Today's session is Here's Your Desk, the Art of Onboarding. In 30 minutes, you will learn the difference between new hire orientation and onboarding, the ROI of onboarding, the onboarding continuum, and tips for onboarding that engage and excite your new hires. Now for a few housekeeping notes. Everyone on the line is muted by default. Please download the presentation and respond to polls when you're prompted. You can utilize the question box to ask and answer questions of the presenter. Please follow KardasLarson on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and check out our new website to watch previous KardasLarson webinars. We value your feedbacks. Please take the survey that you receive after the webinar. That email will contain a recording of this session. Now let's meet today's presenter. Cheryl Chester has been affiliated with KardasLarson for the last 6 years. She has over 25 years of experience focused on leadership and employee engagement. Cheryl?
Thank you, Michael, and good day to each of you. Today we'll focus on a term currently being used across organizations. That term is onboarding. Many of you will relate to another term, new hire orientation. Both refer to preparing a new hire for what's ahead. So today we'll look at the scope and relationship between these two terms. Let's begin by doing a poll for those of you on the webinar. So do you feel that your organization adequately prepares new hires for their new position? So yes is definitely effective. No is I don't think we do that. And partially obviously is we do it, but there's probably room for improvement. So take just a moment and complete the poll, please. Great, thank you. So I'm glad to hear that 25% of you feel yes, that you do a good job of orienting new employees. 8%, yeah, you don't, and so hopefully this will help you. And 67% partially, that's great. Again, hopefully we can give you a few more tips to move the needle on that up to yes. So now let's look at what we're going to explore today. As Michael overviewed in his introductory remarks, today we'll be covering the differences between new hire orientation and onboarding, as well as the synergy of combining them. We'll look at the business case for onboarding, including some return on investment, the full continuum of an effective onboarding process, and finally, tips on onboarding in support of new hire engagement. So let's begin with examining accountability for new hires. So within your organization, who is responsible for onboarding a new employee? So we have a mix of responses. Bottom line is each one of these has an accountability for new hire orientation or onboarding. I would suggest that 42% responsibility by human resources may be a little high, but again, it depends on your organization. The other area may be a result of having a buddy or a mentor involved in the process. So let's look at what some very recent research has talked about in terms of who is accountable. In that research, you can see that the work team was the most accountable reported, and that team includes peers, other team members. It could also include colleagues from other areas with whom this new employee will be interfacing regularly. HR is next, and that may include some benefit selection as well as a more formal process on day one that HR conducts. The manager accountability at 11%, I would suggest that the manager's support of a good onboarding process and really articulating with his or her team what people's accountabilities are is really critical to the overall effectiveness. So let's take a deeper dive into orientation and onboarding by first differentiating the two. So new hire orientation typically focuses on policies, procedures, and benefits election, whereas onboarding is a broader focus that would include the procedure and policy pieces, but also would focus on the organizational culture, the business side, products, key business objectives, and client profiles. Both are critical to assimilating a new hire, and both enable the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors of the new hire with a focus on the broader organization. Key learning here is that it's not an either-or, but rather a combination of the two. If you've ever started a new job only to find that the organization is totally unprepared for your arrival, you know how important this full onboarding process is. So let's explore how to combine them under the umbrella of this new term, onboarding. Onboarding is a process that is really focused on the new employee's understanding of the business at large. So it can include, or should include, the culture. What are the norms? What's the vision? What are the values of the organization? Plus the business. What are the business initiatives? And what are its target markets? These two pieces combine to create the new hire fit. For those of you who did not attend last month's webinar, which was focused on new hire fit, you can go to our website and listen to this as a way to further inform your efforts in further impacting your onboarding process. Now that we understand the differences in these two terms and the need to combine them, let's explore how best to do this by reviewing the 4 C's of onboarding, represented by 4 discrete levels. So we begin with compliance. Compliance is really the paperwork, the policies and procedures. And next we move to clarification. This is primarily clarifying the new employee's job parameters as well as the organizational structure of the team. When we move to culture, we're looking at a broader view, as I said earlier, the vision, the mission, the values of the organization at large. And finally, level 4, the connection. And in this level, we're looking at the organization's interpersonal and information networks tied to the business goals. So, one more poll. Let's take a look at on which level your current process focuses. So, take a minute to identify which one is your focus. Is it compliance, clarification, culture, or connection? Thank you. So this is great. This is very positive. Only 15% of you said compliance. And again, not to say that all of these aren't important. The message here is really to be able to combine them and make sure that you are doing a very holistic approach to getting this new hire up to speed. So I'm really encouraged by the 38% response rate in culture, as well as you're moving to the connection piece as well. So thank you. Now let's look at some key facts about onboarding that really cut across all of these levels. So fact one, the process may be formal or informal. I don't want you to feel that if it's an informal process that it's not effective. Whether it's formal or less formal really is dependent on your needs and on the resources of the organization. A key fact is that the process is most effective if it begins prior to day one and continues well beyond day one. In fact, best practice for length of the onboarding process is about 90 days. The third fact is that augmenting whatever your process is with ongoing support is invaluable in terms of continuing to assimilate the new employee. The end result of a more expanded onboarding process is that it has a considerable return on investment. Let's take a look at that. According to some very recent research, the return on investment for a really effective onboarding process is that it increases job satisfaction by 53%, job performance by 60%, and retention by 52%. These are pretty powerful statistics and will serve you well in considering expanding your process. In fact, in research done at Harvard Business School in 2015, it was identified, effective onboarding was ranked as number 2 out of 22 HR practices in terms of its impact on business success and profit margins. Now, obviously, you can't effectively cover all 4 levels of good orientation and onboarding on day one. So let's look at a proposed continuum for this full process. Note that this is an incremental build of information and typically spans over a 3-month period. Research indicates that 20% of new hires leave within the first 45 days due to a limited exposure to the business. Yet 37% of companies still focus on process and paperwork, more of the level 1. With retention being such a critical challenge today, let's take a closer look then at this full continuum. And note that the height of the bar really indicates the importance of this piece of the process. So let's begin with pre-boarding. Pre-boarding is a time when the new hire is really in no man's land. One door has closed because they've left their previous employer, yet a door has not opened yet. So the new hire needs to have his decision to work for you reinforced at this time. Best practices in pre-boarding might include having a call with the new employee that's initiated by the new manager, by a buddy, or by a team member. It might also include creating a new hire mobile app or sending paperwork or new business cards to the new employee's home. Day one is called the most important day on the job. This is the day of the full first impression. It's a time when you are encouraged to have a clear agenda for day one that includes lunch with a colleague or a manager. It also should include a workstation that is well supplied and also might have branded material on the workstation, such as a hat, a t-shirt, a mug. It could also include a glossary of acronyms and org charts. Moving to week one should continue the intensity of day one and could include a full agenda for the week so that the new employee is not sitting at his or her desk wondering what's next. This agenda is typically meetings with team members and other colleagues, with a new manager, and it might also include the beginning of a job shadowing with a team member. Moving on to the first 30 days, this typically would include required training that the new hire must complete, and also it could include your soliciting some initial feedback from the new hire about the onboarding process and what more information they need. Moving on to days 31 through 90, the intensity obviously deaccelerates, but it's important that the new hires still be receiving new information about the organization. It also may be a time when the new manager does the new hire's first performance review check, and also a more formal onboarding survey so that you can learn what has worked and what needs to further improve. So let's examine some best practices that apply across this continuum. As we said, the pre-boarding includes a reach out to the new hire before their first day. Another best practice is to make the first day memorable, to make it a celebration of the new hire and to show your excitement in their joining the organization. Keep the schedule for the new hire tightly structured, as I said, so that they're not sitting at their desk trying to figure out what they should do next. This structure can include meet and greets with both team members and cross-functional employees. It's important that you set expectations for the new hire early and often. So for example, an expectation may be that by the end of the first week, the employee has met with each team member and has also completed their paperwork. And last, provide role clarity and help new supervisors understand the impact of their performance on the team, the department, and the organizational business initiatives. I'm going to now invite you to add other practices that you have found to be particularly helpful to new hires. So please type in the question box your ideas about what else you do within your organizations that you feel are particularly helpful to new hires.
Cheryl, the first one here suggests assigning a new hire a buddy to help them.
Great. That's a particularly effective piece. So making sure that the new hire has a buddy, has a go-to person that can help them through these many days of lack of clarity for the new employee.
Another one suggests doing benefits elections before or after day one.
Yes. The more you can get the elections out of the way either before day one or at a subsequent time following day one, so that the whole focus of day one isn't on benefits. That's a great idea.
Another one here suggests lunch on day one with a team member or manager.
Yes, oftentimes if a new employee is coming in, they may have some formal kind of orientation during the first half of the day. It's often disconcerting if at the end of that they're kind of left alone with, oh my gosh, where do I go? Where's the cafeteria? So having someone join them for day one for lunch hour is critical.
Another one here suggests regular touch base meetings to review progress on the onboarding checklist.
Great idea. And also inherent in that response is that there is a new onboarding checklist, which can often help guide the employee through their initial days. So that's a great one.
And the last one here says we have a member of the executive team to welcome new hires.
Great idea. The more you can get your senior level people involved in this onboarding process, the stronger the level of commitment that the new hire sees in terms of their being welcomed and fully assimilated into the organization. So thank you for those. I'd like to leave you with a few final tips. Be prepared. Make sure the workstation is fully equipped, that technology is in place, and that the employee has an ID for and passwords for the technology. Identify a buddy or a go-to person so that the new hire has someone that they feel they can comfortably talk to about questions they have. Don't boil the ocean. Don't try to completely examine all 4 levels and try to impact all of those at once. Try a new technique here and there. Solicit feedback from the new hire during their onboarding as well as after it. And last, celebrate your new hire rather than burying them in paperwork. I'd like to now open it up to questions you may have. So please type your questions in the question box.
All right, Cheryl, the first question that we've got here says, this process looks like it will take many additional resources. How does a small company accommodate it?
Great question. It doesn't necessarily need to add resource. It may be just further dedicating a person to be with the new hire for a time. So I'm not suggesting that you add resource or that it's a cost prohibitive process. It can be done with your existing resource.
And our next question says, why bother with such a thorough process if up to 20% of employees will leave within the first 45 days anyway?
Great question. The idea behind this is the more you do and the more you provide employees with a larger scope about the business and the organization and how they fit, the more you reduce the tendency to leave early.
All right, Cheryl, thank you very much. Thank all of you for attending this KardasLarson webinar. We encourage you to follow KardasLarson on LinkedIn and Twitter to receive information on future webinars, compliance updates, and our speaking engagements. You can still download a copy of this presentation in the handouts section if you'd like. Please be on the lookout for an email later that'll contain a survey along with a recording of this presentation. Our next webinar topic will be What's so hard about supervising? A reality check for new supervisors. We're now signing off.